second panel is titled Young People's Voices and Freedom of Expression. It will be introduced by Pam Dix from IBBY UK, and the session will focus on the voices of young people on their freedom of expression. We look forward to an engaging and insightful discussion. Pam?
Thank you, Harold Ambrose. And welcome back to this session, which I'm very pleased to be introducing you to. Over the last 3 days at the fair, we've heard a great deal about young people and their suffering, and young people, the need to listen and hear the voices of young people. And seen and heard has been a phrase that I've come across in lots of sessions, so this feels very timely. So I'd like to welcome you to our panel, and it's just stopped, but I don't know if you noticed as you walked into the room that you could see a magical hand drawing at the side. And we're moving into the presentation, so that's why we've swapped the screen. But we have to welcome one of the participants in the Seen and Heard project, the illustrator of the project, who's Chris Riddell, who was the English Children's Laureate, is a very well-known illustrator, and he's the illustrator on the project. So I don't know if you can hear me, Chris, but there he is drawing away. And after we've had the presentation from the panel, Chris will be live drawing during the conversation and discussion. So it is always wonderful to watch him. I'm used to seeing him on the stage in front of my eyes. So the fact that he's in England doing this now is just the magic of technology. I love it. So with that, I'm going to hand over to the panel. So we're very, very lucky to have this wonderful European project, which is called Seen and Heard, and which listens to the voices of children, and I hope is a model for us to think about, really. So I'm delighted to introduce from my immediate left, I'm not very good with left and right, Nikki Parker, who is one of the Seen and Heard project people. Nikki, I've known for many years. She's a children's literature and human rights expert. She's worked for Amnesty before, and now she's as part of the Seen and Heard project. Next to her is Fariba Schulz, who I've just met for the first time today, who's at Humboldt University and also the University of Potsdam. So 2 universities, so that's rather good. And then next to her is Gwensa Jobo, I'm not going to say it very well, so Jobova, who is the president of the International Publishers Association, and obviously a very important person at the fair. So we're very grateful to you for spending your time joining us today. So the format for today is going to be a presentation about Seen and Heard, and then a discussion between the 3 panel members with Chris drawing in the background. So over to you, Nikki. Thank you.
Thank you, Pam.
Oh, and I should say, if you want to ask questions, there will be time at the end. But if you'd rather write your questions on a piece of paper, then you can pass them to me and I can read them out. But the questions may occur to you as we're going through the session. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pam. And thank you, IBBY, for inviting us. We really, really appreciate this. So Seen and Heard is a 3-year European project which explores the impact that children's books and culture can have on children's understanding of human rights, especially their right to freedom of expression. And in essence, it's a project that centers children's rights and children's voices through books. It's a collaboration between the universities of Malta, Wrocław in Poland, and Humboldt in Berlin, as well as Amnesty International Poland. We are working with artists, educators, and over 600 children of over 50 nationalities. Many of them are migrants and refugees, so very much at risk of social exclusion. The adults include expert mentors to support the children to express themselves about things that most concern them in making documentary films, in writing, and in art. I'm lead consultant for Amnesty Poland, while Fariba is lead investigator for Humboldt University in Berlin. So, freedom of expression, and we've heard about this morning, so I probably don't even need to say, you know it, children have the right to freedom of expression just as much as adults do under the 1989 UN Convention on the Rights of the Child. and they also have the right to participate in all decisions that affect them. Seen and Heard is rooted in human rights education, which involves critical thinking, looking at problems from different angles, being curious and asking questions. So the opposite of learning by rote. We're asking, can stories empower children to understand their rights and express themselves? And we're going to start with a little film made by some of the children in Malta who chose to be mentored in documentary filmmaking. And it goes to the heart of this concept of seen and heard and why it matters to them. And I'm always impressed that for most of the children, like for many of you in this room, English is their second or third language.
Stop, yes. It was something 1, 2, 4.
3,
Scene 2, take 1.
2,
Scene 3, take
1.
1. I believe that children should be seen and heard because each word has an effect on society.
It's important to be seen and heard for our human rights and to be equal. Also, we're not rude to each other, we're kind and we understand ourselves.
I want to be seen and heard because parents and adults around the world don't listen to kids, and that might end up affecting children's lives.
So everyone can hear each other's opinions and to help one another.
We need to be seen and heard because the future of our society depends on us.
Because we are human too.
It is important because children see stuff more clearly than normal adults, and also because adults don't really care about children because children like imagining things, while sometimes they might be saying the truth.
I want to the kids stop committing suicides every year because of bullying.
Adults can actually listen to us when I preach an idea. Maybe someone could listen to me instead of ignoring me and saying, okay, and then it never happens.
It's important for people to be seen and heard because they have the right of freedom of speech. So they can inform or warn others.
Because we might have better ideas on how we can help the environment and the climate and also as humans, and that we can also help other people by these ideas.
I need to be seen and heard too because I have an opinion.
And everyone has the right to be heard and seen no matter where they were born or where they live currently.
Yes, and with this insight, I want to give you a little bit of an overview how we started to work with the children and the young adults. So we began by asking children in all three countries, so Malta, Wrocław, and Berlin, what they thought freedom of expression means and how they relate to it in their own lives. And three teams, one led by Juliana in Malta, one led by Justina in Wrocław, and one led by me in Berlin. Germany ran an initial survey to gather impressions, and we followed that up with literary workshops and a second survey. So, as Nikki already said, over 600 young people aged between 10 and 14 of over 50 nationalities and many languages participated at the same time in Malta and Gozo, Wrocław and Berlin. And the literary workshops took a slightly different approach in the three different localities. In Malta, the focus was on the discussion who is given the power to speak and act in the stories and whose perspective is left out. The Wrocław workshop was dedicated to the question, can literature us inspire to act? And in the Berlin workshop asked which children's rights are thematized, how and in what way. And the students were invited to browse the book selection and choose one to explore in more depth. And the story explorer, as Nikki shows, Origami by Amnesty International, which is a really helpful tool, invited them to explore more questions, such as what issues are being explored, whose story is being told, who is treated with respect and dignity. And it encouraged, in a playful, thoughtful way, to focus the reading process on issues of inclusion, children's rights, and freedom of expression. We're still in the process of evaluating all our data, but can share some initial impressions and thoughts. So in Malta, where there's a lot of building development, students often cited the importance of saving the environment, of liking animals, liking trees, etc., as the reason for choosing particular books. A number of students demonstrated an understanding of the importance of valuing people for who they are, not only what they can do. So one of the observations in Malta that really stood out was made by a black girl whose group chose A Child Like You. You see the cover on the slide. And she said, and I quote, "This is how I feel, that there are no stories about people like me, but now my friends are seeing this and they are thinking about how that feels." And another child said, related to the same book, "It made us think that if we say something, we can make a change." In Wrocław, the book Young Power, 30 Stories About How Young People Changed the World by Justyna, and I don't know whether I pronounce it right, Suchecka. Thank you so much. Justyna Suchecka was the book the children found especially appealing. It contains accounts of young people from Poland who fight for a better world by pursuing their passions, engaging in activism, conducting research, or designing innovative solutions. Each story includes details of the young people's activities as well as their reflections. And some of the child participants quoted these reflections during the workshop as they found them inspirational. The popularity of this book during the workshop seems to indicate young people's needs for real-life and relatable role models and real examples of engagement and activism. When we look at the students' reader responses in Berlin, for example, to Sean Tan's picture book Cicada, the students addressed not only clearly the children's human rights to no discrimination, protection from violence, or the right to food, clothing, and a safe home, but referenced directly to their everyday school life. One student said, "I used to be bullied," which directly links to what the students said the picture book is about, namely, and I quote, "about exclusion and discrimination that features a cicada that is bullied because it is not human and looks different."
So then after the workshops, the children were invited to sign up for optional creative mentoring, and it was to empower them in creative, peaceful protest about issues that bother them the most. So really to be able to stand up for themselves and each other safely. And also to have fun because of children's right to play, which was referenced earlier. And our mentoring approach the program is led by academics and by artists, and it takes an artivist approach, so arts and activism combined. Two of the mentors are the author Sita Brahmachari and the artist Chris Riddell, who you saw drawing earlier and who will join us in the panel discussion. And so in this picture you can see him leading one of 4 really fun online drawing workshops with the children from the 3 separate countries, and then one combined where they could all wave at each other through the screens.
Yeah, and as the students were really were joining, participating, the students were really surprised how relatable an artist is, especially Chris. And one teacher fed back that, and I quote, that the children often think that authors or illustrators write or draw ready for print. And she was impressed how Chris explained his process and his sketchbook to the children. And during the online workshop, Chris Drew talked about his creative process and answered the student questions such as, what happens if you make a mistake? And, I don't answer this, but the children have been inspired and started to draw just like he described he did in school when it was hard to listen. So, good advice for teachers.
And then the author Sita Brahmachari and I visited Malta in last October, and we ran 4 creative workshops in schools. And Sita encouraged the children to doodle and to write and to draw their responses to quite big thinking prompts of dare, dream, believe, imagine. And you can see them doing them on the strip of paper on the floor there. It's all part of human rights education, as we saw earlier, but we all have the right to that under international law. And with Sita, as part of this project, we're also making some longer-term creative classroom resources called In Our Hands. So the idea is for children to consider what's in their hands to change and what isn't, and why that might be. And those resources will be freely available online for all educators to use from September this year. The activities include short prompts to children to creatively explore and express their concerns, their hopes, and their dreams. Obviously, these are pictures that they drew either during Chris's workshops or during the workshops with Sita. And as part of the project, we're also co-creating a children's book that must reflect their calls for change, and it must embody what their concerns and uphold their freedom of expression and participation, which was quite a challenge to think, how do we do that with all of those 600 children? But to cut a long story short, it will be an illustrated communal poem that's entirely informed and inspired by the words, pictures, and actions of the children involved and participating and seen and heard. And really, it goes back to what several people have said today. It's about deep listening. It will be ultimately written, curated, if you like, by Sita, illustrated by Chris, and we're also massively grateful to Walker Books, who are taking this on as a pro bono CSR project and helping us make this for all the children involved in the project. And here is Sita speaking directly to the children.
Hello, my name is Sita Brahmachari. I'm an author, and I've experienced firsthand how stories and all the creative arts can move people to change the way they think, feel, and behave. I'm so happy to join you, along with the wonderful illustrator Chris Riddell, on a creative journey to make sure your rights and freedoms are seen and heard. Seen and Heard is the name of your project. We will listen and look closely at what you want to express about your rights and freedoms, and make sure that your voices are seen and heard in a book containing your illustrated communal poem on creative protest. The theme of the poem, In Our Hands, not in my hands or your hands or their hands, but our hands, because history shows us that it is only in raising our voices together that we can change the world for the better. We can't wait to see and hear what you want to say and express about your rights and freedoms living in our world today. In the meantime, enjoy your creative process. And there are some of the children responding to Sita's workshop.
But we're going to move now to another video, which is of Dr. Juliana Fenech of Malta University, who in many respects is the driving force behind Seen and Heard, and she's talking about the children.
Co-creating a book with 600 children in 3 countries requires a very particular team of artists. Amnesty International Poland and Nikki Parker within that team have led the process and brought on board Amnesty Associated author Sita Brahmakari and illustrator Chris Riddell. Both Sita and Chris have experience working with protest. Their portfolio demonstrates this, and both have experience working directly with children. Sita and Chris take on an almost curatorial role in the sense that they're taking inspiration from workshops run with children, from the children's drawings that emerge from these workshops, from the children's words, phrases, poems that emerge from the workshop, to bring together a book that will be about freedom of expression, that will be published and shared not only with the children in the project, but more widely.
That with children, if you give them the space and the time and the listening, they say things that, I mean, personally, I wouldn't have thought of, and are really important, really valuable, and I think make this Seen and Heard project 1,000 times better than it would be without. That is absolutely core, and for the book that's coming out of this, which Sita and I are working on, it wouldn't have a heart without this listening process. And just to say that that last little bit of the film was filmed when I was actually in Malta sitting next to Sita, hence why I referenced her and not Chris, who is equally integral. But Fariba.
Yeah, at least in that way, Juliana could have been, in a way, with us. She would have loved to be here. To sum our small presentation about our project up, we hope that you will take some of our methods as a chance to discuss social justice issues with children and young people, and even adults, of course, who are often marginalized and ignored, and that you will support and uplift children's rights, voice, and to participate. And as we already mentioned some of those implementations that we used, so there's the literary workshops. There is, of course, the Story Explorer, as Nikki already have shown you. There is, of course, the introduction to child rights. There's refugee and migrant rights. There is, of course, the Seen and Heard material that will be available soon. There is, of course, the communal poem that will come out, will be published as a book, as a children's book next year. So, yes, this is kind of it, and thank you very much for your attention. These are our contacts, and as well, at the end, we invite you to join. Oh, I'm sorry. You're done? Yeah? Okay. And at the end, we cordially invite you to our conference in Malta, Seen and Heard, Young Adult Voices and Freedom of Expression, in February 2026. And hope to see you there when we explore human rights from the perspective of young people as active citizens. So, see you in Malta.
Thank you very much. So I think we can switch to Chris now and welcome him back, and he'll be drawing as we're talking. So I'm going to hand back to Nikki now, who's going to manage the rest of the panel. But welcome, Chris, and I don't know, can he hear us if we give him a round of applause? So thank you so much, Chris.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. I mean, it is very nice not to be there. Just want to say that straight away. No airport delays, no sort of baggage issues. I'm sitting at the bottom of my garden speaking to you in Bologna, so I feel, in a sense, I am in Bologna. It's, as you said, it's a wonderful modern technology. While I was listening to these lovely words, I was drawing in a sketchbook, and as I said to the children I talked to, this is where, for me, everything begins. And this is the very first page of a new book that I was actually given by 2 young women who visited me from Malta. So I thought it was good to bring this along and start the sketchbook while talking. I just want to say a few words about the Seen and Heard project, which I was approached and told about it. I instantly felt a connection to the idea of creativity and protest, making your voices heard, but also making you seen. And as a visual artist, seeing is one of the great tools at my disposal. I was asked to contribute to an exhibition at the Bologna Children's Book Fair, celebrating the work of Dr. Seuss, a wonderful political cartoonist in his own right, very critical of America First, a movement in the Second World War. They asked me to do something in homage to the Grinch. And of course, there was only one subject matter I could think of. So I drew the orange Grinch. This is my little sort of facsimile of what I sent over to Bologna to be exhibited next to the book. And just before the day before the Bologna Book Fair began, I had a lovely message telling me that the Dr. Seuss state had decided that my drawing was too political and so couldn't be shown at the exhibition. So in the spirit of Seen and Heard, I thought I would show my orange Grinch at the Bologna Book Fair, whatever the state said. My little protest.
Thank you, Chris.
Thank you so much for listening. And I'm going to really enjoy drawing the discussion that is about to take place and actually taking part in what I think is a wonderfully inspiring project with CETA. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Chris. We asked Chris to join this panel discussion to demonstrate the joys of freedom of expression in action, and he's definitely doing it already. Thanks, Chris. And I'm very glad you've got to show that picture regardless of the Seuss estate. So I think this panel discussion really is about the vital importance of freedom of expression in a context of rising censorship around the world. And just as a very brief reminder, the human rights that we have been referencing all came out originally of the Universal Declaration of Human Rights of 1948, after world leaders and world thinkers came together desperate to avoid the horrors of both world wars and the Holocaust from repeating themselves. So that's the sort of the bedrock of international law. It matters if we're to uphold peace and happiness. So, Gavansa, if I may start with you, why do you think freedom of expression matters across the publishing world so much, and what are the threats and dangers to it now?
Hello to everyone. Thank you for wonderful presentation and for the show as well. It was really nice, and it's nice to be in this beautiful environment, of course. The question is quite broad. And to start with, I will just say that, as you already said, I am the president of the International Publishers Association, which is a huge organization. We have members from 84 countries and 105 organizations. And we work, of course, in different directions, but one of the most important pillars for our association is freedom to publish, of course, together with copyright. But freedom to publish is very important, and we see this importance even more and more nowadays, looking at the environment we are living and looking at the situation in different parts of the world. Of course, there is no publishing without freedom to publish, and there is no freedom at all without freedom to publish. And we also say that there is a trinity of freedoms, of course, which is important for us, is freedom to expression, freedom to read, and freedom to publish, because children should be able to choose. For instance, if we cover our topic, they should be able to choose, and they should have the freedom to read the books they want to read. That's so important, but it covers a lot of topics and not only kids, of course. The situation is very difficult. Recently, our association published 2 statements. One was about Turkey, because probably most of you know the situation there, massive arrests and restriction of freedom to publish there. So we publicly support it because we have a very strong member from Turkey, the Publishers Association, who is doing just wonderful work in terms of freedom to publish, because you know that there are so many people who are suffering because of those reasons, sent in jail and so on. And there was another, the very recent one, it's Algerian-French writer, Bouelouem Sansar, who was also arrested by the Algerian government. And we see that there is something really hard happening in Algeria, because before that it happened that Algerian book fair restricted the very famous French publishing house Gallimard to participate in their book fair because of specific Algerian writer they have published. So we see it everywhere. It's so difficult. And not to skip this, I'm also from the country, Georgia. I'm actually a Georgian publisher as well, beyond being working in the association. And our situation also is unbelievable right now. What I could not imagine, to be very honest, several years ago. But this situation, like autocracy, becoming so strong all around the world, we see it everywhere, and we see the real results of that in our everyday life. So should we go deeper in this discussion, or do you want me to?
Well, I mean, we were talking yesterday, weren't we, about
yes.
how autocracy seems to be using different kinds of censorship, whether it's political censorship on the streets, repression of media, but also identity censorship, particularly LGBTQ plus identities. Why do you think that's happening?
All right, then let's say something about the laws, about, for instance, LGBTQ propaganda law, which became so famous last time, but it's not the only one, and we can talk about that as well. The first time I have heard about this LGBTQ law was several years ago when Actually, Russian publishers addressed us that this was happening in their country, and they asked IPA some kind of support, that it was restricting their freedom to publish. And we looked at the situation, we learned the situation around it, and at that time, I really could not imagine that just a few years later, this law will come to my country as well, but it actually happened. It happened last year. So the government adopted the LGBTQ, so-called LGBTQ propaganda law, which restricts us to, as they say, distribute materials promoting LGBTQ community, society, in the educational institutions like schools and universities. And distributing materials, actually, it relates to books as well, of course, and mostly the books. There was a big protest against that, of course, and most of the teachers and lecturers said that we are not going to obey this law, and this law is not actually very actively working right now, because the one reason that people did not obey, but there is a bigger reason. And this bigger reason explains why this law was brought in our country. So they cover it as they are taking care of the society, if they are taking care on our values, and this works very well on the conservative part of the society. But the bigger goal for this is to use this topic, together with some other topics, of course, as a tool to strengthen the autocracy in the country. Because this is how they achieve to divide society. And if you want to build autocracy, first step, what you are doing, you are dividing people. You are making different sides, that people fight among each other and say that these are bad people, that the Europe is something which brings the values which is against our values, or the West is bringing something against our values. So this is how propaganda works, and this is how they are trying to brainwash people. But besides this LGBTQ law, there was also what we call shortly Russian law, but it's also foreign influence agents law. So this is another thing, that those people, non-governmental organizations who are actually for many years fighting for the rights of LGBTQ or for gender equality and so on, they are enemies. And they are agents, because they are financed by international funds, and this international fund is not for the interests of your country, but it's foreign interests. So there are another group of people there which are also doing something really bad against the values of the country. So we are talking about these issues, but this is also so much related to publishing. We feel like that, publishers in Georgia and writers in Georgia, and we are part of the protest, and it's an everyday protest today. It probably will be 126th day of permanent protest, every night going in the street. If I'm not somewhere traveling, I'm always there as well, together with my authors. So this is about, we feel that they are using our books as well, because, for instance, one day we heard suddenly that the Prime Minister is discussing a specific book of one of our colleagues' publishing house, Georgian publishing house, who published the book about good night stories for kids, and one of the main character in this book is LGBTQ person again. And so the Prime Minister has time to discuss the books in the Parliament. Yes, so this is how it works. We are part of it, and then we go to of course, another point, how we should react.
Yeah, I mean, it's using patriotism, traditional family values that other speakers were talking about earlier as propaganda, affecting everyone in this room who all require freedom of speech, freedom to publish, as you said. But if we move on, how could we in this room and other educators, writers, publishers better support children and young people to understand their rights and stand up for themselves and to ultimately challenge autocracy. Fariba, do you have thoughts on that?
Yeah, and it links probably, I don't want to repeat what have been said in this room, but of course we are bind to the Convention of the Children's Rights, and we have the duty to firstly, and I'm speaking now in an educational point of view, we have the duty to firstly recognize them and then implement them within the framework of educational institutions. And then the next step would be to educate children so that they recognize, that they know about their rights. And the third thing is the other important thing, to empower them, that they claim their rights. And of course, in this kind of climate, we also have to inform them how to be safe while claiming their rights. Because this is something important as well, because it's not really safe for a marginalized person to claim their rights when they're under fire. So how to be safe to do this, and where to look for allies and not do it alone. But in another way, going back to that educational point, to those educational institutions, children's literature is a wonderful thing to get into discussions with not only the children, but as well intergenerational, because adults are discussing with younger people different topics and discourses. And so we have the possibility, the opportunity to open classrooms to do a practice that Paul Lefrère would define as reflection and action upon the world to transform it. And this is what we need to do if we want to really implement children's rights, because this is, at the moment, it's just a promise that it's not real. So in order to have that everybody has real rights, we need to have kind of stories to imagine how it could be, because children literature and stories have a real impact, as we see with the right wings, because they use narration perfectly for their purposes.
And they also always clamp down first on artists and writers, because they're fearful of the power of the word and the art. They're frightened of it. And I think something that we know comes from out of children's books, from baby board books upwards, is something about kindness, human connectivity, which in a human rights terms you'd call solidarity. So encourage that. So those who are marginalized, to encourage all children to act in solidarity, and all adults as well. And although we think of them as very small acts, it builds up. And I think of a man called Albert Woodfox, who Chris will remember because he live drew for a book event for Albert. Albert was in solitary confinement in the United States for 44 years for a crime he didn't commit. And when he came out, he wrote his book and he came to Amnesty and launched it. And he said that there was an audience member in tears saying how could he carry on living after that. And he said he'd received sackloads and sackloads and sackloads of messages of support from around the world. So much so that the prison governor called him in and complained about it and asked him to make them stop. But he said every little pebble it's a cliche, but every pebble we throw in the pond can create a wave and make a big difference ultimately. So we should all take responsibility to do that. Govansa, do you think within publishing that there's any other sort of constraints on freedom of expression, like the commercial imperative, for example?
Well, there are some others as well, of course, in publishing, but once again, it gets back to the environment, because it's not only that someone restricts us to do something, but there is when we ourselves decide not to do something. It brings us to the self-censorship, of course, and it brings us to our decision not to publish something or not to write something at all. So this is something really important topic as well nowadays because when the environment is not safe, maybe directly no one is telling you not to do something, but you don't feel safe at all, and you just make the decisions yourself. It's so beautiful.
I like it, he's touching his belly.
I'm just saying.
Difficult to focus.
Well, Chris is not self-censoring.
No, not at all.
But I think, Nikki, one of the things that comes across, I think, very well in this discussion is the power of being seen.
Yes.
And that is why I think autocratic regimes are so keen to control the means of being seen, who can be heard, how they can be seen. And we live in a world where social media and publishers and the dissemination of good ideas and powerful forms of expression can be, we I think, have got to, in our various disciplines, defend the right to speech, the right to be seen, and the right to be heard.
Mm. Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. You were talking about that yesterday, actually, Govansa, the publishers pooling resources, finding allies. Would you like to say something more about that?
Yes.
And not just publishers, yes.
Yeah, just broadly. And there are always a lot of questions. For instance, there are questions in my country to those people who are in protest that what are your expectations, or what you are expecting from the future? Will it work? That's always like every day someone is asking, will it work? But what we realized is that for many years we were expecting that someone is supposed to do something, but this someone, it's never us. It's politician, it's, I don't know, some activist or a non-governmental organization again, but not us. And right now, it appears that we don't have any political leader, so leader from the opposition which we could relay. And we said, what are we doing in the situation? We are just giving up and saying, no, there is no one, so let's give up and let our government do whatever they want to do, or we are planning to do something. And then the people said that we know, it's so widely known that everyone says the society is the main ruler in each country. And what does this mean? It means that we are not using our power, and we are letting some small group of people to rule us. So we decided to start from ourselves. And we decided, we always say, not every person is capable to look at things globally, in general politics, but we are capable to do something in our professions, for instance, to start with. We are good experts of how publishing should be done, what we want to be improved. Let's start having plan about our own profession. Let's see how we can, what is so important, how we can be united. Because, it's so becoming so normal being competitors and competing. It's business still, but then beyond this, there are really important global topics which won't be solved, and we can't resist if we start doing this separately. So we said, let's forget for a while, when we have such a huge challenges in our country, let's forget about this competition, because if we stand together and if we start talking to each other and planning something together, we are such a big power. And we started using this, and we realized that we somehow became the friends to each other, allies to each other, and we were happy with our results as well, and feeling that our unity means something. And afterwards, then this brought us to another idea. Why publishing or literary field should be doing this alone? Why we should not find allies in the cultural field? And we started talking with someone from movie sector, someone from theater, and we realized that we didn't know these people at all. And then we found so many bright people in those groups as well, and then we created this unity called Culture for Democracy, and started together to do something and together to resist. And afterwards, when we went in the street and met so many people standing next to us in the street, we found someone from students, very active and very devoted to the change in their country, and then someone even from politicians, and someone from civil sector, someone from media, and we said, let's unite, because we see, and we were talking yesterday that there is a book which really gave me a lot of inspiration and information as well, which belongs to Anne Applebaum, and she's an American, not Polish, the wife of Polish foreign minister, but American writer herself, Autocracy Inc. And this book describes what? This book describes that the autocracy nowadays is strong because they have links to each other. They are, we should say, somehow united, and they are supporting each other, not because they like each other, and not because Russia likes Iran or, I don't know, China, but because they have the same goal. And this goal is that if the autocracy wins in one part of the world, it's something good happening for them as well, because it gives them more chances. And we realized that it happened in our country as well, because when our elections were rigged, such countries accepted the results, which we thought that they even don't remember about us, that we exist, Georgia. But they did, and then when I read this book, I realized what's going on, because it was not accepted by EU, not by states, but someone from Zimbabwe who cared, I don't know why, about the elections in Georgia. So that's how it's working, and it means that we also, if we want to resist and if we want to win on this happening with us, with all of us, we need to find links, we need to have a network, and we need to stay strong and united. And at the end, I will just say that what we in Georgia, fighting for democracy every day doing, is to show to especially to Europe, because we feel to be Europeans as well, and we are very close to this territory, that we are here. Like Ukraine is there fighting and giving their lives, and we are here ready for fight. But are you ready to stand next to us and support us and support yourself as well? Because it's not only about us. It's like common fight for the Europe, because this threat is real. So I think that's it. Yeah.
It's a kind of call to action for all of us, because all of this applies to children as well. That wonderful word that Eva Bergmans used earlier about censorship, stifling, the stifling from little ones up to old age. It's happening, and it's a real threat. And so just
Nikki, can I share a little anecdote? When I worked as a cartoonist at The Economist, one of the nicest places to go was the office of the European editor. And you could go into the office, and there was a desk that could only she's described as the most beautiful desk in the building. It had a lamp, it had family photos, it had sort of plants, but it was a little haven in the middle of this corporate sort of office space. And that desk belonged to Anne Applebaum.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
A thoroughly good and wise woman. And Autocracy Inc., which has been mentioned, I think is a great and devastating critique of how societies can be subverted by the powerful.
Thank you. Thank you for backing up that recommendation. I'm definitely going to get that book. I think it's time for us to draw to a close, but there's just something I wanted to say about this thing of freedom of expression. It is literally the core of who we are. And somebody else that I was privileged to meet at Amnesty was a former Guantanamo Bay detainee who said that in the first year in Guantanamo Bay, they weren't allowed paper and pencil, but they so much wanted to express themselves that they had polystyrene cups for coffee. They would use their fingernails to scrape poems into these cups and pass them down from cell to cell. Such is that human need. So finally, I went to a wonderful event yesterday, I expect many of you did, with Sidney Smith, the illustrator, and he said his core message in his books is everything will be okay because we are together. So I think in our case, everything will be okay if we are together, and we need to make this call to action. And thank you so much, Gavansa and Fariba and Chris, thank you very much. I don't know if there's time for questions.
I look to her, Lambert. I think we have got a few minutes for questions. I think it's quite important. But before we do move to questions, just join with me in thanking these people for a wonderful presentation. I don't normally have tears in my eyes on an IBBY panel, but I've got tears in my eyes now and also a feeling of I need to get out there. You've shaken me. So there's someone in the middle with a question, if we could pass to you.
Hello, great panel. My name is Yoda, I'm from Cyprus. I am a teacher, primary teacher for 25 years, also a writer of children's book, and a PhD student at University of Cyprus. So I want to raise a matter since we're discussing about children's rights. I was supposed to come here with my 11-year-old daughter, bought tickets, everything, and last minute I found out that she was not allowed to enter the fair. And I talked to her and she said, what? Why I don't have the right to enter since it's a children's fair? And I said, darling, obviously, the concept is different. Publishers want to sell and buy rights. Rights? Where are our rights? And I was walking through the fair 3 days now. Amazing experience for me, it's the first time. And yes, everybody is selling and buying rights. Most of them, not everybody. And where are kids? Where are children? I've been working with children 25 years. Maybe the last day could be free for children to come, maybe schools come organized and give the chance to the children to look up the fair. I mean, if we really care about their rights and discussing here, then we have to make some changes. Thank you.
Do you want to answer?
I mean, all I can say, because none of us are representatives of the fair, but it's a very interesting point and one that we'll certainly pass back to our colleagues who've supported us today. It's a very interesting point. And I'm sure there would be bureaucratic replies, but you've made a positive suggestion, so I think it's one that we can pass on. Thank you. Is there anyone else who wants to ask something? I mean, we'll all be around over lunch, so we can talk.
No, in front.
Yes, there's someone in the front.
Could you say something a little bit about how the variety of languages of students you were working with impacted the work in terms of picking the literature that you worked with, or how you tried to interact with kids who, as you said in the video, their language, their first language is in English?
This is actually something that is challenging, or was challenging, and even the literary workshops were just limited to 90 minutes. So we needed to have image-based literature so that you can really go through the literature in a small amount of time. So we were searching for a lot of silent or wordless picture books, of course, and we implemented as well a short film because a lot of the children when not particularly into reading, so that was something as well. And
that was in Germany, wasn't it?
That was in Germany, yeah. And this is something as well. I would say for Malta, be interested as well to have more multilingual books, so that you have at the same time the chance. So even the one question would be as well: are you alphabetized in those first or second or third languages that you share in your family or outside of school? But it will be helpful to have more kind of literature that is image-based, and I know publishing houses are saying this is not really lucrative, but from an educational point of view, it is very lucrative.
And in terms of the sort of the co-creation of the children's book with Sita and Chris, we're making it in 4 languages. So, I mean, on the same page, which is an incredible restriction on Sita creating this poem, because, first of all, she went through all the films, all the drawings, all the words, and the word limit in English is 800 words max, because there has to be 20 to 25 words per double page spread, and then the same equivalent in Maltese, in Polish, and in German. And then we've been looking through together the core words that we want replicated in multiple languages. So words like welcome, safety, those sorts of freedom-related words. But honestly, it's taken a lot of thinking. But ultimately, what's coming out of it, I can see, is really powerful already. And we're still at sort of editing stage, and Chris hasn't got started on it yet. So yes, it's work, but I think the value is high.
And what I love about it is that I just get to do the picture. I think when we're talking about communication, the power visual is incredibly, brings together, and the kids that I did workshops with were just in responding visually.
Yes.
To sort of expressing feelings, emotions, and humour. That is a universal language, which we all understand, and yet is different for each person, and culturally can be very different. The way that children from different cultures create is fascinating.
Yeah. No, it's like that visual language, like we're seeing in the room at the moment. It's adding an extra dimension, a completely extra dimension to the room.
One more question? Okay.
In terms of access to books and what the lady said before, I was thinking of, have you ever thought of inviting writers and illustrators to create books on that kind of topics under Creative Commons, as my colleagues from Book Dash South Africa are actually doing, because they fight with the problem that they have no books at all. So they create that kind of books under Creative Commons in a very extensive e-library, so everyone can download and can, of course, change. This is also part of the question with the writers and illustrators' rights, but at the same time, I'm pretty sure the cause is important, and maybe there will be interested artists that can.
I think it's a really important question, but I think it's something that I hope will grow from this project. We are somewhat constrained by time and limited budget, and we're kind of, and the EU bureaucracy, wonderful though they are to support us, but you're right, and that sort of growth of participation and creating things together, or co-creating, I think, yes, it should be looked at, definitely.
And even probably in cooperation with the children. So, yeah, like we started with Chris and Sita and expanded. Yeah, that would be lovely to have the support by artists to help them make their own feelings seen, heard, and their freedom of expression in different ways, because you explore different kinds of possibilities to get your voice out there. And this is lovely with art, because there is so much possibilities out there, and that might fit for everybody. So there's a different tool for everybody to make their own voice seen and heard. Yeah.
Well, thank you very much for your questions, and thank you very much to all the panel. I'd like us to take just a moment to think about those people who are not here, Sita, Chris, members of your Seen and Heard team, and all the children who've worked in the project, and thank them for their input. And thanks to these people, and one round of applause, and then I'm going to hand over to Harold Ambers, who's going to sum up our morning. So thank you very much, everyone.
It's really great. It seems that a good idea is to have maybe a digital exhibition with the drawings of Chris. It's really excellent. We've been enjoying the conversation, and also having Chris with us. He's here. Thank you, Orange Grinch. So I will try to sum up. It's our collective responsibility to find ways to support the children's right to read. It's in our hands, as we heard just before. We need a literature that not only respects but also empathizes with children, a literature that respects their experiences, validates their emotions, and inspires their dreams. It became clear today, I think, that such literature must be free from censorship and political intervention, allowing young readers to explore diverse perspectives and develop critical thinking skills. As we conclude our conference, let's have in mind that challenging times never end. It is during this persistent moments of adversity, that our resolve to support the right of children to read becomes even more vital. We must continually seek innovative ways and effective ones to uphold this fundamental right, ensuring that every child has access to the transformative power of literature. We urge each of you to take the insights and inspiration of today's discussions and turn them into action. Build global translation machines, or help publishers avoid mistakes, or have the same definition of reading. Advocate for policies that protect children's access to books, support initiatives that promote reading, and create literature that empowers and validates young readers. For books to truly make a difference, we must commit to championing every child's right to read, and strive to create a world where literature serves as a beacon of freedom, empathy, and growth. At this point, I need to thank all of you for being here with us today, all of our speakers, the Bologna Book Fair staff, the technicians that were helping us today here, and for all the support, and also the organizing committee that we spent hours during the past months organizing this day. Please give a great applause to Doris Breitmoser, Hasmi Shahinian, Eva Devos, Pam Diggs, Sabine Fuchs, Laia Lopez, and Marta Roy. Please wave a bit for everyone to see you where you are. Yeah. Hi. So, ending our conference, we want to leave you with an interesting next milestone. The European Conference on Literacy is scheduled on next July in Ljubljana. So before you go, you can maybe watch a short video prepared by its organizing committee. After the video, I kindly ask our speakers and panelists to come in front to capture the moment with a group photo. Thank you all for being with us today and for your contributions. Until we meet again, take care and act.